Welcome to the Workplace Wellbeing Essentials series. I'm Mari Ryan. I'm the CEO and founder of Advancing Wellness. It is my pleasure to welcome you today to this expert interview, where we explore topics that impact employee well-being. My guest today is Nina Sunday. Nina is an internationally renowned speaker, workshop leader, and author. Her latest book is Workplace Wisdom from 9 to Thrive, Proven Tactics and Hacks to Get Ahead in Today's Workplace. With a Bachelor of Arts and Diploma in Education, and after working in education, performing arts, sales, and television, Nina founded Australian training company Brain Power Training. Over the past 2 decades, she grew a network of facilitators delivering her specialized intellectual property in workplace skills to private and government sectors. Nina is joining us today from Australia. Nina, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, I'm excited to be here too, Mari. Yes.
Thank you. Our topic today is about psychological safety. For individual and teams to be productive at work, it's essential that they feel safe in their workplace. And that's not just the physical aspects of the workplace, which of course is essential, but it's also from the psychological perspective. In today's conversation, we'll explore what it means to have a psychologically safe workplace and what employers can do to create one. Nina, why don't we start by just level setting for our audience as to exactly what is a psychologically safe workplace?
Well, you can imagine there's a continuum. And at one end, you've got mental health and mental issues. And at the other end, you've got bullying and harassment. Those are the two negatives. But right in the center is this very subtle area of psychological safety, which through research, they've actually identified what are the two attributes that contribute to psychological safety that also then have a carry-on effect in terms of teams' effectiveness. Having said that, there's the whole area of mentally healthy workplaces. So, and avoiding the psychosocial hazards that might cause more than psychological safety, just these issues around people needing stress leave or even counselling and help. So I probably can talk about the subtle area for team effectiveness that comes from culture, but as well talk a little bit about, how to avoid the impact of actually these psychosocial hazards.
Well, that's great. We will definitely explore that. But before we go there, I'm curious as whether you could be specific about some of the signs and symptoms that a workplace isn't psychologically safe. What does it look like or feel like to the employees?
Well, how I initially got into this was I was aware that the Google company do some really great research. They did, called the first research was Project Oxygen, where they identified the 8 good behaviours of a manager because they wanted to identify, well, why are the high-scoring managers on their team effectiveness measurements, there's a correlation between that and the results of their teams. And so they started looking at things like, is it that the manager is more educated or not educated? Are they more introvert or extrovert? Mm-hmm. Do they allow team discussions to be more free flow, or does the manager sort of is a strong chairperson and sort of ensures that it goes in a particular order? So they looked at all of those and they distilled it down to 2 qualities. One was social sensitivity, which is, for example, it's being able to ask, are you okay, if they notice that someone is maybe not their true selves today. So social sensitivity was one criteria, and the other one was conversational equality. And the second quality or attribute that they discovered was conversational equality. Now, what does that mean? Well, in any meeting, you often have the extrovert, fast talkers sort of getting in their opinion, and perhaps the slower to raise concerns, or the slower to speak or the more introvert members of the team kind of go, oh, well, they're so passionate about that opinion, I must be wrong. And you see, there are companies like the VW Volkswagen company that have got themselves in hot water with the emissions scandal. That it was a whole litany of failures, but one of the reasons for that failure that's been identified by the new CEO is groupthink. And he's come out and said project managers and engineers need to be comfortable to express their point of view and not keep it to themselves, because it obviously was a whole cohort of people that decided that trying to cheat government tests was a good idea. Instead, they've had to shrink their workforce by 7,000, and they're going back to the drawing board to launch an electric car. But, why go through all that pain when, if they'd had the ability for people to speak their ideas and avoid groupthink, that it may not have been disastrous for that company.
Nina, your comments make me think that middle managers, or wherever we want to categorize managers there, have a really important role in creating a psychologically safe workplace. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, it's all about culture. And you see, one of the problems is fear of conflict and artificial harmony. And you see, some people, the difference between psychological safety and trust is that sometimes, especially if people are socially sensitive, they'll go, well, I can't raise that concern because Fred might think I'm criticising him, and so I'll say nothing. Whereas that's artificial. If you have a culture where healthy debate is not taken personally, and a manager is open to new ideas and doesn't see it as a challenge, well, that's when you have a psychologically safe workplace. But it requires people to operate from a low ego. We all have high egos, but not to be so sensitive about their own ego, and to be, I think a phrase that comes from philosophy is slay the ego. It's like, be open to new ideas and to take them on board, and not be always finding ways to make sure that you're right and that you're always in the best light. So managers really lead the charge on that.
Certainly do. What can employers do to remove what might be toxic elements of their workplace and to, begin to create this more psychologically safe workplace?
Managers really need to be taught the skills of how to create a great culture based on evidence-based research. And so it seems to me that most managers, especially if they've been in the workforce for a long time, people just assume, well, they've learned by doing the job. But there's a lot more new research come out that can identify that, making people able to express their opinions, going to your people with questions instead of with answers. We did our own research with our clients on what would you say of this list of toxic behaviours was the priority or the worst. And strangely enough, the one that came up top, second was bullying, number one was withholding of information.
Oh.
And people if you don't share information, it comes across as you're keeping a secret, and then rumours start, and then it creates this whole buzz underneath. So culture is about being open with your people.
Right.
And also, if you know anything about behaviour profiles, there's the DISC profile, which is the high Ds are very direct, and they know what to do. So they go into their team and they think that they have to lead them by showing them that they know what to do. But if you operate from a place of, I know what to do, but I need to bring my people with me. So why don't I give them the perception of choice and the perception of control by saying, hey guys, we've got this issue. What decision should we come to? And in a head, a clever manager can lead a team almost to the decision they've made, but the team feels as if they came up with the decision together with you. It's a much better way.
Certainly sounds like it. You talked a little bit there about trust, and I'm just curious if we can delve into that just a little bit more. And how do we really create that trust in the workplace?
Well, there's another area of psychological safety that I haven't yet mentioned, which is and another definition, which is Professor Amy Edmondson's definition from Harvard. That is, psychological safety is freedom from the fear of being belittled, blamed, judged, victim of sarcasm, the subject or the object of jokes, where if you speak up and create your boundary and say, when you talk about me like this, I feel, and just giving them the impact of that. A psychologically safe workplace where people are socially sensitive, they'll go, well, I didn't think of it like that, and thank you for telling me. Whereas an unsafe workplace, I'll go, oh, you can't take a joke. And so it's up to the manager to be aware that there could be, if there is this undercurrent of sarcasm or belittling, or incivility or disrespect or rude behaviour, or don't talk to me, I'm in a bad mood today. We can't have that. We can't bring the black cloud into the workplace. And we just have to, we can say, look, maybe you need to go outside and recover for 5 minutes and come back in with a better mood. And that's where a culture where we have a chance to talk to each other and call out unresourceful behaviour, well, then that's going to be an effective workplace.
No, that's great. Those are really good suggestions. What can an individual who finds themselves in a working situation where it's either toxic or where they don't feel like it is psychologically safe, what can they do? I mean, short of packing up and finding a new job.
Well, I think it is all along a continuum. You see, it depends how bad it is. You see, if we've got an organisational psychopath as a manager, they often kiss up and kick down. Right?
Right.
So if you see that you're not going to get any headway with a manager who is either a bully, or this is the phrase I've heard in the workplace, wields disapproval like a sword. Well, I'd be getting a new job. But one thing that you can do is, if it's not quite, well, while you're waiting to get the job, is one of the ways that we can overcome poor behaviour is actually for people to get to know, like, and trust each other. So if you can possibly initiate any get to know activities that perhaps are not happening, because often a workplace that is lacking in social sensitivity, people aren't getting together, even whether it's to celebrate someone's birthday. It could be just bringing in a cake and having morning tea together, celebrating wins, breaking down the silo effect. Often it's which is the us and them between different departments. So if you can become the social initiator and create these get-togethers, it might lessen the impact. The other thing I'd recommend is find a mentor in another department, depending on how large your organisation is, of course. A mentor, if it's in a large department, a large company, in another department, who there might be a workplace get together where you can actually have a conversation and say, look, can I have a coffee with you from time to time? And see if you can get an advocate, not so much for you to complain up, but just to maybe let off a bit of steam and also get advice on, I'm having this issue at work in my role. What's your opinion about what my next steps might be? So mentoring, find a senior manager mentor would be a great idea.
That's a great suggestion. It's so interesting how aligned our work is. And I think about the fact that in the model that we use for well-being in the workplace, connection is one of those key dimensions. And
Absolutely.
I often ask about, what kinds of social activities or ways in which you bring people together to be able to create that sense of belonging in the workplace.
Well, number one, I am amazed at the number of people when I go in and work with a team, I'll say, who has lunch at their desk?
Yes.
And it's almost expected now, and managers
Yeah.
almost frown on people leaving their desk. And yet, you will
Yeah.
be more productive if you have 30 minutes lunch break. And if you're going to have 30 minutes lunch break, why not have it with one or two other members of the team,
Mhm.
which is up to the manager or the employer to provide a
Yeah.
table with chairs for people to actually sit around, and to cultivate people leaving after 5 hours, having a half-hour break away from their desk. So that's number one. The other thing in my own team, at one point I had 8 full-time staff. I've kind of, my business is more lifestyle now, but I remember the difference between, I read a book called The Happiness Centered Business, and it talked about having morning tea together. And I looked at our own behaviour, and people used to get up and make their own tea and coffee and take it back to their desk. And then I just brought it in. Let's have morning tea together. And obviously, as the business owner, I had to monitor how long we stayed talking, because it
Right.
could easily be half an hour. But how I would fix that is I'd say, when I felt that the timing was right, 10 or 12 minutes had gone, I'll say, okay, mini meeting. And I turned it into a mini meeting for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And honestly, I never enjoyed my team more, because I got to know a little bit about their life,
Mm-hmm.
the issues in their lives. Maybe they were planning a trip, or maybe they had a student that was, a child that was going through exams and was stressing out the whole family, or there might be some aging family members that need help. And a manager needs to know a little bit about people's lives.
Exactly. Well, it's so
Mm.
interesting that you specifically mentioned the lunch break thing, because that is actually a question, and we ask it just that way. What do you do on your lunch hour or lunch break? And that's often not an hour, but what do you do on your lunch break? And give choices like, I eat alone at my desk, or I eat alone but not at my desk. And so we have this whole, options of different choices, and it's always amazing to me the number of people who say they eat alone at their desk. And it's a cultural statement. We pair it with a question about how often people take breaks, and
Mm.
whether the culture supports people taking breaks frequently throughout the day. So
Yeah.
we are just so aligned on the way we're thinking on some of these topics, Nina.
I'm a great believer in seeing blue sky at least once a day.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are deep inside buildings,
Right.
and that assumes you have a blue sky. It is a blue sky where I am. But, getting some fresh air and just seeing outside, just having that, clearing the mind, and then you can come in more refreshed.
So
Hmm.
important. So important. Nina, is there anything else you'd like to add to our conversation today?
Oh, well, there's so much that goes into psychological safety. But, here's one thing. One of the things when I do workplace culture, that I bring as a tool is a talking stick. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
story about Senator a senator who brought a talking stick to a meeting when your US Congress was shut down. I think it was January 2018, and she used the talking stick as a way to have Democrats and Republicans speak for 2 minutes. Once you held the stick, you couldn't be interrupted. So I bring a talking stick that I bought at a gallery, although you can just pick up any interesting looking stick and paint it, and it's a talking stick.
Right.
And I find that the first time I brought it into a workshop, I went, oh, how are they going to handle this? But they actually grabbed it like a microphone and embraced it. I went, look, to have a talking stick at meetings, especially if you have a lot of people who like to talk but others are not getting a word in, that can be a really useful tool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I appreciate that suggestion, because sometimes that can be part of the culture, is people are not respectful of the other people's opinions, or they talk over them or whatever it may be. So that's a great suggestion.
And if you are the introvert where the fast talkers are sort of overriding the meeting, it's okay to say, just to speak up and say, look, I'm sorry, but I'm really just not following. Could you please slow down and explain yourself more clearly? And just be assertive enough to say, I'm really not getting this. It's like when the fast talkers all agree with each other and you feel like it's all being taken out of your control, just pull it back and say, look, I'm here at this meeting and I'd like you to explain what's happening more clearly. So
great suggestion.
Yeah.
Good. Excellent. Nina, if our audience wants to learn more about you and the work that you're doing, where can they find you?
Well, I've got ninasunday.com is my website. I'm on LinkedIn, so connect with me on LinkedIn. And I speak all around the world on this topic. So and
Nina,
my book.
And of course your book. Let's not forget your book.
And I'm in the middle of writing the next one, which will actually be a more focus on psychological safety. I'm sort of focusing in that area now.
Excellent. Well, it's really easy to see why audiences worldwide love spending time with you. So Nina, thanks so much for being here today.
My pleasure, Mari. Thanks for inviting me. It's been a real pleasure.